This lineup is so cool because I think you have a whiskey for every type of whiskey drinker.
For everyone.
Right?
Yeah.
We're missing the Irish. We're working on that.
I would say that your single malt...
single malt isn't too far off,
It's
right?
not that far off.
Yeah.
It's not that far off. It could easily be mistaken for Scottish whiskey.
I mean, your stills are a replica of an Irish distillery, are they not?
Well, they were I've never had it thrown back at me like that.
Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
It's Whiskey in the Six, I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whisky Rant Podcast.
It's a little crusty,
It's frustrating.
and it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whisky Rant Podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
And today in studio, we got a full house.
Yeah.
It's Quinn and Cooper from Sleeman & Sons Distillery. I guess it's actually...
Spring Mill.
Spring
Mill, but the label, yeah.
That's what I was going to say, Sleeman & Sons Distillery, but it's really the Spring Mill Distillery.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a mouthful. Sorry about that.
Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for coming by and bringing us lots of treats to sample tonight.
Guys, I want to tell you a little bit about my favorite store, BSW in Alberta. It's my favorite liquor store. You can find it online. You can get a promo code from me personally. It's 15 from Whiskey in the Six. Use that promo code and you get 15% off anything that's not on sale or limited. So obviously limited stuff, sale items are not going to be included in that 15%, but there's a ton of really, really cool items on sale all the time at BSW. Arguably, in my opinion, the best prices all across Canada, all across North America for that matter. Really difficult to find better prices than what BSW has, as well as the selection. Probably, arguably, the best selection in all of Canada as well, and maybe even in all of North America. Just an incredible selection. They get everything from Scotch, Canadian whiskies, Irish whiskies, Japanese, name it. All sorts of Cavalon as well. They have a huge Cavalon selection. Again, if it's on sale, you can't use that 15%, but if it's not on sale, and there's a lot of stuff that's not on sale that's already really, really great prices, you can use that 15% off and they will ship right to your door. All right? Cheers, guys.
So I guess you guys are like direct descendants of John Sleeman himself.
They're nobility? What is it? Nobility?
Noblemen?
They're noblemen?
You're noblemen.
Is that what we are?
They're royalty. They're of royal blood. That's it. The nobility is just the rich people. The royal blood is the descendants of the king.
Right. So growing up, you guys just drank beer for breakfast. Is that what happened in the household? Or?
Actually, the very first thing we ever had before Mama's Milk was a thimble of cream ale.
Yeah.
Sleeman's
Nice.
cream ale, in the operating room.
You have to do that,
Yeah.
or else
Our dad snuck a bottle of cream ale in.
you don't come home from the hospital unless you can stomach that, right?
Yeah.
That's
how it
really
works.
cool.
Yeah, so definitely, drank beer. But you know what? We always had whiskey in the house. We always appreciated whiskey. We'd always kind of end the night with a whiskey, and so it makes sense that this is the next step.
Yeah. And you guys were saying that, like, obviously you've committed to this whiskey making adventure big time.
Yeah.
And how long has the distillery been operational?
We commissioned our stills in February, turned them on essentially in February of 2019.
Right.
And we sold our first bottle of vodka April 11th, 2019.
Okay.
Wow, timing, literally right before the pandemic.
Yeah, it crushed us. The pandemic crushed us.
Jeez.
It hurt. We made the decision to essentially wipe out our marketing budget.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at anywhere from 94 to 96% revenue losses every month. Because you know what, we're totally aware, this is how we drink and shop too, right? I would go to a bar and someone goes, hey, we've got this really great whiskey. Do you want to try it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? If I'm at a liquor store and I see an expensive bottle, I'm a little reluctant to make that jump if I don't know that I'm really going to like it, right? So when all the bars and restaurants closed down during COVID, it really hurt our business.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I don't know about you guys, but it was kind of how I shopped. And we were essential the entire time, right? We were still going to work.
Sure.
We were making hand sanitizer and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd come home from work and I'd strip down all my clothes in the garage and put in a black bag and then go shower and all that
Those
stuff.
times are crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But from a shopping perspective, like we weren't called at that time John Sleeman and Sons. We were called Spring Mill Distillery because that's who we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when I went to shop, going to the pharmacy, going to the grocery store, going to the liquor store, I knew while I'm waiting in line to go into the store, right? Like I knew what I was going to shop for.
Right.
I went in, I got it, and I left. So there wasn't much browsing. There wasn't much shopping around.
Right.
So that like compounded on our struggles when
That makes
COVID
sense.
hit, right? So we're launching a new brand. People don't know who we are. So it was a tough time.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. We've talked to a lot of like distillers that have come from like a beer background, and it seems to like translate really well. I'm not sure if your master distiller like has a beer background, but obviously you guys know beer. What do you think is like the main advantage of having like a beer core to distill?
Cleanliness, really. That's
Yeah.
the big thing. Because like when you make whiskey, you always make a beer first.
Yeah.
You just don't do the boil. But during that process, you want to make sure that there's no bacteria that's going to make your ferment go bad or anything like that. And so from a beer background, cleanliness is key. And bringing that to the distillation side of things, it really helps with making sure that you're on top of hygiene and all that sort of stuff.
For sure.
And we've always said, and I'm pretty sure kind of everyone knows this, is every distiller is a brewer,
Right.
but not every brewer is a distiller.
Right.
So we're really lucky that way. Our master distiller was the VP Ops, really ran the entire Sleeman brewery business for 30
He was
years.
employee number 3 at Sleeman.
No
At
way.
Sleeman Breweries,
Yeah.
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 Our dad hired him out of U of G, biochemistry, right?
Yep.
And he ended up running the whole place. And it's funny because the inception of the distillery was really on a cocktail napkin out for a couple beers and our master distiller Don Bellman was saying like, hey John, like I'm done with being a brewer, thanks for everything, I'm kind of riding off
He
into the sunset.
was retired.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
out of the game. He was
And
done.
they went and had a couple cream ales to kind of celebrate and left with the cocktail napkin of starting a distillery because they both were passionate whiskey consumers.
Really?
They thought
Nice.
there was an opportunity here for us to do something in the Canadian market that's a little different. And yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't you introduce what we got in front of us here? Because we have 6 different expressions on the
Yeah.
table right now.
Yeah. Do you want me to run through all of them? Or
Yeah,
just-
yeah. Might as well just go quickly through all of them, and then we'll go back to the single malt because that's what we've got poured right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one here is our what we call our core single malt. So we've got handmade for site stills, and we've also got Canadian wood, but Scottish made wooden washbacks. And from what we understand, we're one of very few, if not the only ones in North America to have wooden washbacks for making single malts. We're very
Okay.
proud of that.
We're
Interesting.
one of 2.
Yeah, there you go.
I believe so.
That's a crazy story. Sorry to stop you right there, but you guys actually like commissioned on like Canadian wood,
Yeah.
shipped it to Scotland,
Yeah.
had them make it for you,
Yeah.
and then ship it back.
So
What's the shipping cost on something like that?
I do not know the answer to that.
It's not cheap. The whole process wasn't cheap.
So just south of the border is where most of the wood comes from for washbacks in Scotland, and they call it Oregon pine.
Mm-hmm.
North of the border, it's the exact same tree. We call it Douglas fir.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a tremendous amount in BC, and we figured to make it as Canadian as possible, we wanted to have washbacks for the process to be authentic, made out of Canadian wood.
Yeah, that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so we sourced the logs on Vancouver Island, sent them down through the Panama Canal. They were fabricated there and then sent back to us. And I think they're a really good example of who we are as a company. And that decision to get Canadian wooden washbacks was made in 2015, 2016. Like it wasn't something that we were in the last 5 weeks or last year decision kind of made. But we wanted to be authentically Canadian at no product quality lost. That's the paramount. That's the number one thing, is ensuring that as long as the liquid is going to be the best it possibly can, let's layer in Canadian. The guys that we bought the washbacks from didn't want to buy Canadian wood. They have their wood guys that they deal with in the States, right? And they're like, hey, no, we got our guys that we deal with. And we're like, well, if you want the business, we're going to buy Canadian wood. So it just overcomplicated things. And it really goes to, I think, our dad's persistence.
Yeah.
Dedication to
Yeah.
the Canadian, making things.
I mean, I
extra
like it.
Canadian.
I love
yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Then when was Quinn sent to learn how to cooper?
So I actually started when the building was being renovated to turn into what it is now. I just asked a simple question of knowing what the trade was, but knowing no details.
Right.
I just asked if we had a cooperage lined up or if we had a cooper specifically. And that, my dad is very interesting in his responses of, okay, if you're showing interest, I'll be able to help you out, trying to find something work for you. So there's a guy in Prince Edward County that had done some work with him in the past, who he just sent me there for about 2 or 3 hours. We actually, it's a very weird thing, but old beer barrels were made out of beech. And he was recharring a beech barrel, a Labatt's beech barrel, which I thought was really funny, to be used for port because he wanted to age some port in there.
Okay.
I thought it was just the most bizarre but incredible experience just in that 2-hour period that I fell in love with it. So that started all of it, and he's a very passionate guy, so that kind of sparked my passion too.
Nice.
And not long after that, I was able to actually, the guy who made our stills, he's in, you have Craigellachie right there. So Craigellachie is where Speyside Cooperage is, and that's 5 minutes down the road from Rothes, which is where Forsyth stills come from.
Okay.
Our stills are made from Forsyth, and they actually were willing to connect the two of us, and I was able to go there for a while and give them free labor, as they were so happy about. And so yeah, like I was saying earlier before, I walked by Craigellachie Distillery every single day on my way to work.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And now you guys have an in-house cooper, which I don't think probably anybody else in Canada has.
That's a good question.
I'm trying to think. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you
it's
know of
definitely
any?
There's a few coopers in Canada. There's not too many that are associated with distilleries
Right.
directly.
That makes sense.
Most of them are like running their own business. A lot of them are actually retired coopers who are now using their networking to buy and sell barrels.
Okay.
And I want to just jump in there, kind of funny, as the brother looking at it from 30,000 feet. There's a good reason why there's no coopers in Canada.
It's hard work, right? I would assume it's hard work.
It's super expensive.
Okay.
It's super long. Like you gotta identify the wood, and then let the wood season. You know, like it's just such a process. Whereas you can pick up the phone and get barrels within a couple days,
Yeah.
right, shipped to you.
Yeah.
So it's a real passion project,
Mm-hmm.
and we're extremely lucky, right, to have Quinn be super passionate about it.
Yeah.
But it does kind of give us this extra spice in our spice cabinet, if
For
you
sure.
will,
Absolutely.
that we've got upstairs. And to be honest with you, I just wish he made more. Right? Like,
I don't work very fast.
Well, I'm sure it's a process, right? So, and you'll get better with time. Like, how long have you been doing it for?
This is coming up on my 7th year of doing it.
Okay. So,
and he's already way better. Like
Yeah,
those first
for
barrels,
sure.
I don't know how many of them actually held.
No, I actually, the very first year I made about 20 barrels and I had to repair 11 the following year. The whole next year of me making barrels was actually me just repairing the previous year's barrels.
And are you saying they would leak? They would leak with
Yeah,
them?
so we'd fill them. I would give them to the distillery thinking, oh yeah, they're all good to go. And then as soon as they fill them, they'd be screaming at me.
A little.
There's a lot of whiskey in the process.
That's not all angel share.
No.
They called it a
little
sieve
wet.
for the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, talk about the one barrel that you guys had a lot of success with, like the cherry wood.
Yeah, so actually, initially, the guy I was telling you about from Prince Edward County, him and I made it together. He in the past has worked with multiple woods because he tries to be innovative. But something that was really special to us is the fact that there's not a whole lot of strict rules around whiskey making in Canada. So what barrel you age in and what you finish in is kind of up to the actual distiller itself. So we had the freedom to be able to play with it. We only put it in for about a month. What we did was, just to backtrack a little bit, we took a bourbon, our bourbon.
Which we can't legally call bourbon.
Yes,
Yeah.
Traditional straight whiskey, the black label there.
This guy.
It's Bourbon-style.
Bourbon-style,
Yeah.
After its 3-year aging period, we took one barrel that we really liked and we finished it for just 1 month in a black cherry cask.
Cool.
That Quinn made.
That I made, yes.
We did a single cask release with it, and it sold out in a week.
Oh, wow.
So, and a
Guess
little
it
bit
was
higher
good.
ABV. Yeah, now we get bugged about coming out,
Doing it again.
doing it again. We did do it again. Like for lack of knowledge on that side of things, for me, it's the idea that was pitched was if you just age it and finish it for double the amount of time, you'll get similar tasting notes, especially when you're finishing. So that's what we did for the second edition of it, and again was a success. Like sold out. Like everyone still is bugging us to make more of it. That was one of the fun single casks we've done.
Is the experimental phase of doing stuff like this like the most fun you guys have? Like just, trying out different things, different types of wood, putting it into different casks and seeing the results. Is that the most kind of fun you guys have at this?
On the operations side, for sure.
Yeah.
On the forecasting side, probably not so much.
Yeah, I have the challenge, and it's a blessing to have it, but of trying to predict the future. One of the things that we're not doing is like accelerated aging in any way. Like we're not chipping, we're not doing any of that. So we have to really try and think forward, but the decisions we're making today about releasing whiskeys, those decisions were made 4 years ago. Right. And so now we're hand selecting barrels and we're playing, but there's also an element of, the fact that we're a business, that we're family owned and operated. We're not funded by a giant multinational. We have the pressure of trying to get liquid to lips, getting people to try, and when they try it, we want them to buy it again. So we need to be affordably priced. The last thing we want is for someone to say, those Sleeman guys, they might think they're all that, but their whiskeys are too expensive and they're not very good. That's the last thing I want. That's the last thing I need. So we are lucky to be able to play and spend time having fun playing with unique expressions and things. But the reality is those unique expressions don't pay the bills.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So we need the business to be kind of humming along and performing well for us to take our heads and minds out of that world and spend time thinking about, hey, you know what? Maybe our next single cask should be a lightly peated whiskey from a barrel that we get from Scotland. Yeah. Or it should be a red wine cask that we got from Italy.
Right.
And thankfully we did make a lot of those decisions 4 years ago, and we do have I keep referencing the spice cabinet. We do have a lot of spices kind of hidden away.
Nice.
But taking yourself out and allocating time towards like, okay, what should be the next single cask? That I find it actually kind of stressful.
Yeah,
It's also,
I can imagine.
It's also really easy to get carried away with that, of just having all of these ideas that you want to fulfill, and almost forgetting about what it is that you do regularly.
Yeah.
So, yes, we do have a few things that we're really excited about, but at the same time, we kind of have to reel ourselves in and remind ourselves that, we have this core 5 that we like to stick with, and we got to make sure that we prioritize that. So.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to the single malt here, it feels like there's, based on the nose, like I'm getting like this really nice creamy honey, like apple pie kind of note.
Little butterscotch.
Yeah. My guess would be that, obviously I'm going to ask you that now, but my guess would be this is like a longer fermentation because it's just really nice and malty and rich. And I'm finding just on the nose alone, this is my first experience with the single malt. I tried the second one here, but just so rich. And I think when you get to see single malt in its purest form, it's in a reused American oak cask or something of that sort, and you're really getting like really, really nice rich notes on this.
And Quinn will be able to answer, I think. I'm putting you on the spot here, about like timing for the ferment.
It's 5 days. So, for example, today we brewed some wheat bourbon, which is we call it wheat bourbon, but it's our traditional straight. It'll be emptied and run through our stills, our beer column on Monday.
Okay.
And is that like standard for all?
That's standard for all. So the difference in fermentation is purely just the vessel that it's used.
Right, but we're standard at same timing, like from start to finish.
Our timing is pretty standard. Yeah, I mean, we use different yeast for different
expressions.
Yeah, different brews. Like we use something that has a little bit more of a flavor profile with our single malt than we would with, say, our corn.
Okay.
Just because you aim for higher ABV on corn distillation than you would on, say, a single malt distillation.
Is there anything between the beer making and the whiskey making that's shared as far as like yeast or grains or anything like that? Is any of it similar or the same?
The grain for sure. I mean, with single malt, as far as I know, majority of breweries use malted barley.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why we call it single malt, because it's 100% malted barley.
Nice.
We use it through a lauter tun versus a mash tun. Lauter tun is purely just a sieve on the bottom so that you can separate solids from liquids.
And is it lauter tons at the brewery or is it mash mixes at the brewery?
It's lauter tons at the brewery.
Yeah, so same vessel.
Right. So
For a single malt.
So the grain you're using for a single malt is the same grain that's used in the beer as well.
Typically,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
You can use some other grains with beer, some smaller craft
Roasted
breweries,
malts,
but universally, single malt, malted barley is what you use for both.
Yeah.
Have you guys used roasted malt, like roasted single malt on?
Yeah, we've done a few small things. Actually, we have a small feed. So we have a few hoppers for how we brew, and we have one hopper that is actually hand fed instead of it being from a silo. So we have, if you've ever getting a chance to come to our distillery, you'll see all of our silos are right up front, and they're filled with grain. So we go through that. But if we want to do something a little bit more experimental, we have a hand fed hopper, it just makes it easier to do smaller batch stuff.
And just to kind of answer your question on like the like similarities, for me, when we were building the distillery, like I had the privilege of being there and like physically putting the bolts into the stills, putting it together, like building the place. And because I knew nothing, about whiskey other than how to drink it and like how to enjoy it. What I liked and when I showed up. And so I remember talking with our master distiller and kind of going, okay, what's this room going to be for? What's this piece of equipment for? That I'm like trying to grout into the floor, like what are we going to do here? And it's amazing to me, the pieces of equipment that you need to make single malt is different at every step of the way. Yeah. So like, yes, the grains go into the silos. We have 3 large silos, but if we're doing single malt, we go into like a rolling mill as opposed to a hammer mill, which then if we're making single malt drops into a lauter tun instead of a mash mixer, which then goes into our wooden washbacks as opposed to our stainless steel fermenters, which then goes into our spirit pot, which is different than if you're making everything up. Like literally every step along the way.
Process really well.
Yeah, I put it together. I don't know how to turn any of it on. I don't know how to turn it on, but I know what the pieces of equipment are. And so for me, that was fascinating. It goes back to this. If we're gonna put the Sleeman name on our bottles, and it was something that was told to us as kids, just because you have the last name Sleeman doesn't mean the world revolves around you.
Right.
There's a lot of people that work at the brewery that are proud and happy to work at the brewery, and now at the distillery too, that are putting food on the table for their family because of the last name, and they're proud to work there. And so don't screw this up. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so no pressure, right? And then I'm like going to football practice. So I'm like 7 years old. I'm like, okay, then. But it translates to what we're doing here, right? Like if we're gonna make a single malt, we're gonna put the name Sleeman on it. It better be a bloody single malt. Yeah. And in order to do that, you got to make it the right way, right? And how do you do it the right way? You get the right people and you get the right equipment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? And then you got no excuses, right?
Yeah. Then it's on you.
Yeah.
I have like awesome, like nostalgic memories of opening the fridge at a party at my house. Whenever like there's a family gathering and Sleeman's honey lager, like all
honey
over
brown,
honey brown, and there's the honey brown and the honey amber, or what's the
honey blonde was this
honey
year.
Blonde,
honey blonde is this year. So Silver Creek, honey brown, cream ale, clear, original draft, dark. Yeah, there's normally somebody that goes, yeah, I've had that night.
The original was a staple in
what was the original?
My dorm rooms for sure.
Original draft.
Just okay.
Original draft.
It's like honestly, it's like one of my favorite Canadian beers.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
It helped fund this, so now you get to enjoy whiskey.
What do we have now?
This is the second single malt.
Yeah, so the sherry finished single malt, which you can actually reuse the same glass if you wanted to from your last one.
I just put a little bit of water.
Oh, okay, yeah.
just to kind
So
of...
this is the exact same product. I'll steal a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
This is the exact same product that essentially was I don't want to call it a happy accident. I know I've called it that before. It was a trial. Do you want some? Here you go. It was a trial where we took our oldest single malt casks. We got our hands on some sherry casks from Spain.
Yeah.
We didn't ask questions about how we got them because like they were completely painted black and marked in chalk.
Really?
And
don't
I
ask.
haven't worked for 30 years, so I'm sure there's plenty of things I haven't seen. But in the few years I've been doing this, I have never, ever, ever seen a fully blacked out cask.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
So
It's painted in like your chalk paint that you would put on the wall.
So we don't know how the guy that we bought it from, how he got them.
We obtained them legally.
We paid for them.
So it fell off a truck, and then he's like, I can't let anyone know where this came from.
Yeah, so again, we're pointing fingers a little bit, but all we know is what we have. We got our hands on these. We feel very lucky to have them. And we collectively made a decision to run a trial, which was a very expensive trial, in taking our oldest single malt, debarreling that at the time, which was 4 years old.
It would have been, either 3.5 pushing 4, I think.
Yeah, so let's round up a little bit, 4 years, we'll call it that. Take it out and try and break the whiskey, right? Try and figure out how far is too far.
Nice.
With our sherry.
You want to like over mature it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
See what's the limit.
based on our
Yeah.
rack house, based on the climate, like how long will we then be able to figure out this has gone into that whiskey barrel for too long? Now the whole barrel tastes like sherry.
Okay.
Right? Turns out to be just shy of 9 months in our environment.
That's it, eh?
At our place.
Interesting.
And so then we went, hey, yeah, good job. Like we figured it out. Yeah. And our master distiller was like, I think if I blend
What do I do?
some more single malt back into it, I can recover some of those notes.
Sure.
So that's why, we get a lot of people that say it's not a sherry bomb. Like it starts up front, but it's still got those like light floral notes.
Yeah.
That kind of like buttery, kind of smooth on the back end.
Oh, yeah.
Is because it's been reverse diluted, I guess I'll call it.
Yeah,
with
sure.
our
Yeah, you can
malt,
totally
try to
see.
say.
It's been
But
softened up with our core.
With some of the reused bourbon barrels or
Yeah,
reused whiskey.
yeah.
All of our core single malt is aged in once used bourbons, and then just a small part of the blend from the sherry finish single malt is from an actual sherry.
Do you have a limit to how much you'll use a barrel, or you guys are a really young distillery, youngish, so I guess you haven't reached that point where like is the third time in a bourbon barrel too much, or like
As long as the barrel holds, we'll use it, because corn whiskey, almost everybody uses corn whiskey to help blend and make up a lot of profiles for their whiskey.
For the rye in particular.
Our rye and our traditional straight both contains corn, but
the corn, our traditional straight is a mash bill though.
yes, it is.
so this one here you're talking about.
Yeah, so we're aging corn whiskey in a multi-use barrel to then blend off.
So
as long
100%,
as it was
corn in a multi-use being like a 3 or 4 use barrel. So there's not much flavor coming off of it.
Okay.
And one thing I just want to comment on quickly, kind of cool story, which anyways, we're a young distillery, but in 2036, Spring Mill Distillery will be celebrating 200 years in business.
Wow. young in the whiskey making world, I guess. But sorry, I didn't mean. I should have preferenced.
No. So it's just a real quick one. It's John H. Sleeman. So our great grandfather. He was the one that started Sleeman breweries in 1834 down in St. Catharines.
Wow. Okay.
And on the same plot of land, 2 years later, 1836, he opened the first Spring Mill distillery.
That's awesome.
So that's how we that's how I can say we're going to celebrate 200 years of business. Even though, that brewery from St. Catharines moved to Guelph, the distillery didn't make that transition. Then we got caught smuggling with Al Capone in 1933. So the distillery didn't exist
That's a
for
cool story,
almost
too.
all of that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I think we'll spin it for PR and marketing.
Yeah,
celebrate
absolutely,
200 years,
you should. I mean, I should have said that. I know that you guys have been in the industry for a long time.
Well, we haven't been distilling
We're just
probably
sprucing
since
it up
like
a
the
little
date
bit.
is unclear on when the brewery. I'm sure somebody knows. I just don't know. When the brewery moved from St. Catharines, which is actually St. David's, a little area off of St. Catharines, to Guelph. We don't know when that was. I'm just going to throw a number out there and say 1850. We're going to be somewhere in there.
Wow.
So there was no distilling for 150 years, right?
How rough do you think the whiskey would be in the 1800
Pretty rough.
Sleeman distillery?
Pretty rough.
Right? You think it would compare?
Yeah.
You think you would, if you're blind tasting, you could pick it out versus
You'd
stuff you're
probably
making
end
now?
up blind.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is that people will go like excavating and like pulling stuff up in St. Catharines, Guelph, and then with the beer business kind of all over the place. But people still pull up bottles all the time from that time, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I got kicked in the liver today, so I feel like that whiskey would taste like that.
Yeah, just being kicked
Just
right
like
in your
kick
liver.
right in the liver.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Well, the sherry cask is actually really, really nice. I
Yeah,
do like
very
this
nice.
one quite a
And-
bit.
and this one won gold, which
Okay, yeah,
this
nice.
year at the National
Because
Whiskey
like
Awards.
Awesome.
the blending, they really like whoever blended it
Did a great
really
job.
hit the nail on the head because like you
Absolutely.
don't lose that single malt like characteristic
Yeah,
from
you
the
can
first
totally
one.
tell they're siblings.
Yeah, and like yeah, I mean you just get that nice sherry finish where it's like it's very well blended and incorporated into the whiskey.
Thank you. We won't tell our distilling staff that because we don't want
Don't want to give it away.
we don't give them too big of a head yet.
And 45.5 on this one, right? ABV?
45.5.
Yeah.
Right.
So, are you guys chill filtering at all, or
No,
No.
chill filter.
so even on the 40s, do you find that that's so? A lot of people think that you have to chill filter anything under 46% or 45. What is it? 0.6, 45.5,
Something like that.
something like that.
Yeah, around that, yeah.
Because of the cloudiness or whatever. But I mean, I think people are educated enough now to know that the cloudiness is a good thing.
We pad filter it, so we still filter it. But the biggest issue we run into is when Cooper leaves his whiskey in the car overnight for a sales pitch or something like that.
And then it's cloudy.
And it gets cloudy just from being in the negative degrees.
Yeah, so I think everybody has to filter out like the wood and like whatever,
Oh,
like
for
the
sure.
sediment.
yeah.
We definitely pull all the charcoal bits. We pull like we filtered a few separate times. We just don't chill filter.
Right.
No, and that's important to us that we don't chill filter.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're still getting that cloudiness, that means that all the oils that the whiskey geeks love are still in the whiskey.
for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So that's
Yeah.
great.
Where to move it on to next?
I guess the bourbon, the bourbon
Yeah,
style.
the bourbon that we can't go bourbon.
The bourbon
You know, like
style.
people
Bourbon
people
that we
have been
can't
like
go
commenting on some stuff because like obviously we're getting a lot of attention with this whiskey in the last
Right.
little bit.
Anti-American attention.
Yeah. Well, hey,
No, wait, listen. There's a ton of people that have been very complimentary to Canadians that are American that follow the channel. I'm sure you've had similar comments on your channel.
Yeah, and I think
you know.
that it's actually like it presents this opportunity for Canadians who drink a lot of bourbon. Now that they can, expand their horizon and try other things, and they're looking for that profile, right? That bourbon profile, and you guys have made like a mash bill, essentially bourbon-style Canadian whiskey.
Yeah.
So what is the mash bill?
you want to answer that?
Yeah, 70% corn,
Yeah.
15% malted barley, and 15% wheat, soft red winter
red,
wheat.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so it's the weeder.
It's a
Yeah.
weeder.
And
Nice.
it's a weeder.
I want to tell a cool story about this one too, which is there's this guy, and I've told this story before, but there's this guy that lives about an hour north of our distillery, and he's a big bourbon guy. He doesn't drink single malt, doesn't drink rye, he's bourbon. He caught wind in 2022 that we were making a bourbon-style whiskey. So, yes, please, thank you. Canadian grains, virgin American white oak barrels from Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay. So yeah.
And a recipe that we worked with Americans in Kentucky to develop. He'd heard about this and he thought it was baloney. He's like, yeah, I've heard this story before where Canadians say they're making bourbon, and like prove to me. right?
Yeah.
So
Right off the hop on the nose, that's smells like a bourbon.
It smells and drinks like a bourbon for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
and again, like we've got some more stuff in our hopper in terms of like bigger ABVs and different finishing and stuff like that. But
Okay.
we wanted to deliver a product that is approachable in price point, approachable in taste profile. And so this guy came in and he didn't really show his hand by saying like I'm impressed, but he bought a couple bottles, and I thought, okay, that went well. Like he wasn't angry. He didn't think I was lying to him.
Yeah.
I didn't know, we didn't know, he didn't tell us. He went down to Kentucky, which he goes to on a regular basis, a couple times a year, and he blind taste tested 3 or 4 guys. There's an audio recording of it, which is super cool.
That's awesome.
Master distillers in Kentucky, and said like, hey, I want you to try, because he's been doing it for so long, he's made friends with everyone down there, right? He says, I want you to try this whiskey and tell me what you think. And at that time, it was a 3-year-old whiskey, like it was like brand new. And it was our first whiskey that we launched. And so in the auto recording, they go like, "Oh, it's a 3-year-old," and they went, "It's a wheated whiskey, wheated bourbon," and they broke it down the mash bill, like they knew the mash bill from a blind taste test, which was amazing.
That's crazy.
And then they said, "What Heaven Hill product did you bring us?"
Okay. They thought it was
That's
Heaven
amazing.
Hill.
Yeah. So like for us, like
Feather in the cap. Feather in the cap. Right?
yeah. Well, hey, I mean, then people comment on our social posts all the time, or they comment on whatever platform going like, please don't call it bourbon, like it's not bourbon. It's like, we know it's not bourbon.
Yeah.
Right? But
It
it's
doesn't
like,
say bourbon anywhere here,
it's
does
pretty
it?
damn close.
No.
It does. Well, it says, I think on the back, inspired by, Kentucky kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I see that.
Hey, I just don't want to get sued. We're not trying to put, a facade up and say that we're a bourbon distillery.
No.
What we're trying to do actually, and my dad has said this since day one, is he wants our ryes to be able to stand on the shelf with other rye whiskey and belong there.
Mm-hmm.
He wants our bourbon-style whiskey, traditional straight whiskey. I know it's, anyways, don't sue me. He wants our traditional straight whiskey to stand on the shelf with other bourbons and belong there.
Mm-hmm.
And same with our single malts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think you guys are doing a good job. Like this drinks like a good bourbon, in my opinion.
I think that anyone that's looking for bourbon, like a Canadian style, like alternate to bourbon, they would absolutely love this.
This is a great option for
the
them.
profile is bang on.
Absolutely.
Well, it's funny because our dad, when he was planning on opening this, he's through and through, he's always been a single malt drinker. And since we've released the traditional straight whiskey, it's now kind of diverted his attention
leans to that.
towards.
He's like, oh no, I've always liked bourbons.
Like, sure. Which is a bunch of BS. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the next two are interesting because you use the word rye twice. Rye in the traditional sense of the Canadian use of the word, right? Because technically any whiskey in Canada, made in Canada, can be called a rye. Correct?
A lot of people confuse Canadian whiskey with rye whiskey, even though it's part rye and part other things as well.
Yeah, so this is 25% rye, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
And a blend of two, within that 25%, and I don't know the right way to say this, but...
The barrels are different from the 20.
Yeah, so there's the
they're
blend.
They're married together at the end?
So 75% is corn whiskey.
Okay.
In a multi-use barrel, fully grained to glass, aged in-house.
Okay.
That's one element, 75% of the blend. 20% is 100% rye, aged in a once used bourbon barrel.
Cool.
Traditional, right, for Canada.
Yep.
5% is 100% rye, aged in Canadian oak barrels, virgin Canadian oak barrels, made by...
Very cool.
Nice. So this would be like your direct competition for like a Crown Royal. For those of you that are watching that are like trying to figure out where this would stand, that's what like a Crown Royal, a CC would be. Mostly corn whiskey,
right?
Yeah,
with a blend of other grains.
Yeah,
right?
Like the intention with this is to be the everyday rye guy that is sipping it at home or blending it. Like he feels comfortable making that investment. He likes the way it tastes. It's the Swiss Army knife for him. I call it like the best hosting whiskey you can buy.
Yeah.
Because like you can pour it for somebody and they can sip it neat and go, because that 5% Canadian oak in the blend really does actually pack a punch in terms of that oaky note on the back.
Yes.
So it can stand as a sipper, but it's not like this massive whiskey that's, you know, punching you in the face. The rye really comes through when you're blending it with your ginger ale, your Coke, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's a multi-faceted
Like a versatile
kind of
whiskey. You can cocktail it up. You can drink it straight, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the downside to that is you get like whiskey guys that are like, you know what, it's just not big enough for me. You know, it's not like that. It's not like punching me in the face. You know, like stuff like that. And we were prepared for that criticism. It's also not priced that way, right? It's a $45 bottle. Like it's meant to be like, hey, I need to refill the rye. Like,
Right.
I'm not going to think about it twice.
Actually, on Instagram, a buddy of mine messaged me. He's like, I'm going to the LCBO. What should I buy for $50 or less? I'm like, well, I have it on my bar right now. It's John Sleeman's and Sons
Thank you.
rye.
That means the world to us.
Yeah, and I'm like, go grab that, because he was gonna grab, like, he's like, you know, I want to show him that he can get something different than his regular Crown or whatever. I'm like, grab that. It's $45, I think, or $44.90 something. Or
95.
$44.95. Yeah, it's the fake $45 price.
Yeah.
Deceiving $45.
Yeah, super sneaky. Yeah.
You guys got something.
Yeah,
I'm still working on the.
Yeah.
On the
And I'm gonna
TSW
go with
is what
the.
we call it.
I'm gonna go with this one, the 100% Canadian oak.
We're not there yet.
48%.
We're not there yet.
I know, but I want to go to this one
I
next.
know. I want to go to that one too. Jerk.
One of the things for the people that are listening and not necessarily watching, the rye whiskey, our traditional straight whiskey, and our single malt, they all have the same kind of image on the back. That is the original Spring Mill distillery from 1836 that we were just talking about.
On the front.
On the front. Sorry, thank you. Whereas our smaller releases, our unique offerings, our finishing, our any sort of kind of off the beaten path that we do, we tweak up the label a little bit so you know what style it is, but it looks different. You know, we have blue associated with our single malts, black associated with our traditional straight whiskeys / bourbons, which I can't call bourbon. I'm going to say that every single time.
Someone's gonna comment, "Stop saying bourbon."
Yeah, I definitely, 100% they will. And then we've got like that rich red associated with our ryes. And so we want people to kind of be able to look at our products on the shelf and go, oh, red rye, get it, equal, done, kind of thing. But then, the Cooper's rye, which I know, Jeremy, you've jumped ahead to, has that Canadian oak leaf on the front. Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of really tries to help tell that story.
So is this
Quinn, you might pass me a
100%?
glass.
This is 100% rye as well.
Thanks, man.
Yes.
Cooper's rye is 100% rye.
The last two are both 100%.
100% rye and 100% Canadian oak. So what's the real difference here between what is Canadian oak versus any other oak cask that you would typically get?
Universally, it's white oak specifically that we use. Well, that anyone really uses. It's tried and true. White oak specifically is got the vanilla.
Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? If you want to put the bottle back just to show it.
Yeah.
So so I just wanted to Canadian white oak, American white oak, it's the same tree.
It's Quercus alba. It's the exact same species of tree.
Okay.
The only difference is growing environment.
Yeah.
So
Colder environments make for harder wood, right? Is that how?
Pretty much, yeah. So
That's
like when you're a kid and you cut down a tree and you count the rings to see how old it is.
the spacing in between each ring is where you get the flavor from.
Interesting.
And so the colder the environment, the slower it takes for the tree to grow, the tighter the grain, which means that it's technically a more delicate flavor profile than what you would find in down in Kentucky or Missouri or any of the places where you would find a big bulk amount of American white oak.
Right.
There's a spice note in here that I'm getting that I haven't got before.
It should have the same flavor profile as an American white oak tree, with the exception of a few things like just, I don't know, where the actual tree was grown and soil.
Yeah.
I feel
all that
like
sort of stuff. But
the biggest difference, and there's not too many Canadian distilleries that work with Canadian oak. Like I think
there's very few.
Yeah, I think 40 Creek did one release that was Canadian oak, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's a little, I guess, harder to work with, like as far as...
It's definitely, it's just it's slightly tougher. The other thing too is there isn't a huge industry for it here in Canada, like just cutting down oak trees and turning it into barrels.
Yeah.
Most of the white oak is used for furniture, flooring, that sort of stuff. So there's not a whole lot of people who actually have the ability to quarter saw it and turn it into something that we could use as a barrel.
Yeah.
It's not every day that we have the guy that made the barrels with the signature on the bottle in-house. That's just pretty
And
cool.
again, I know I already said this, but anybody that looks at the dollars and cents with having your own in-house cooper would immediately kibosh
Bad
it.
idea.
Yeah.
You just go like, does not make sense.
But you're getting the
financially at
family
all.
discount here, though.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
Oh.
But yeah, sorry, I
They
interrupted.
pay me
but-
in whiskey. That's
Yeah, that's
There you go.
right. We'll work for whiskey.
But yeah, it's very interesting to see too, because everyone I've spoken to along the way in doing this, with the exception of my original mentor, was like, "You're an idiot. This is a bad idea."
Okay.
Because there is really no industry for it.
Yeah.
Buying aged wood here in Canada goes for about $7.50 a board foot. In the States, it's $3.50 a board foot.
Wow.
So it's less than half the price, unless you try to do the entire process from the get-go of buying the trees before they're even cut down, and then having someone who will mill it for a price per board foot. So that's how we've been able to make it a little bit more affordable, is we have control from the very beginning till the barrel is ready. So,
Well, it's tariff-free.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think one thing about like just trying this lineup so far, you kind of do get the distillery characteristic kind of shining through all these. Like none of the wood seems like it's overwhelming the spirit. Like you get a good balance of both, I think, and you can kind of tell like, oh yeah, this is. I mean, if you drink a lot of it, you could be like, oh yeah, this is a Sleeman's whiskey.
Yeah, you know what's important, I find? So there's a lot of craft distilleries out there that have a crafty kind of taste. And I will not put these guys in that category because they don't drink like it's craft.
Right.
And I mean that in the best kind of way, because it drinks like an experienced distillery. It drinks like someone knows what they're doing as far as distillation goes. And there are the newer distilleries that we know of that do that already as well.
Yeah.
But there's also distilleries that have been doing it for a very long time that still have that like crafty kind of taste.
Right.
And this doesn't have that.
Because
at all. Like
throughout
the lineup,
they're
it's
balanced,
very
right? Yeah, they have good balance to them.
balanced. The cuts are great. You can tell that whoever's distilling,
We owe a lot of praise to our master distiller.
You can tell he's
and his
great.
team is
Fantastic.
and his cuts are bang on because
Super strict with our cuts.
you could tell. You could tell because from start to finish, it drinks like there's a great portion of hearts and not much else.
And that's one thing we've talked to like a bunch of like Canadian distillers who are like, our plan is to like bottle whiskey, at 5, 6, 7 years. It's like you kind of have to take the hearts when you're planning on aging it and releasing it that young. Did you find that as well?
Yeah, I mean it's tough for us because of us being a younger distillery. A lot of people pick up the bottle and don't see an age statement. And so we have to make sure that as soon as it's ready, at 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, that it tastes good.
Yeah.
And like our biggest battle with our cuts is with our finance department,
Yeah.
right?
Right, sure. They're like,
Yeah.
why aren't you?
They're like, why are
Dude,
you
use
just
the
not
rest of the
using all
whiskey.
this? Now, one of the things we do with our spirit pot and our wash pot is we reuse. Would that be the technical term?
Yeah.
Reuse our heads and our tails. And cycle them back in. That was a suggestion made to us from
They're recycled in the next.
Yeah, get a more
in the
consistent
next
batch,
spirit
like your batch over batch. And to your comments about kind of like the Sleeman whiskey style, there's a reason for that, and it's kind of a cool story. The Richard Forsyth, who my father was communicating with to try and negotiate to get these built, by these I mean the stills. Was reluctant to build these for us. He was like, I don't need your business, like in a polite way, right?
Yeah.
Like he's building stills for McAllen, like all these guys.
Yeah.
And in his mind, despite the size of our distillery being what it is, it's relatively small. And John Sleeman, the persistent guy he is, kept pushing and saying like, hey, no, like I have the expectation of delivering premium products to our customers. And as far as he knew, and we still know, they're the best of the best. if you want the best, you got to find the best. And so Richard said to my dad, if you're serious about this, I want you to come and visit me at this trade show that I'm at in Nashville. And I'm going down in a couple weeks. Come down and bring me a bottle of whiskey that you like to drink, John. And I will replicate the still that will make that whiskey for you.
Wow, that's cool.
Okay.
So I won't tell you because we don't.
We can guess what that is, right?
I'll give you a style. It was Irish.
Irish.
It was an
okay.
Irish whiskey that my dad likes.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I can
say
see that with
a
the single
red, like a
malts.
red breast or something.
So went down and said, here you go, Richard. This is the style of well, this is actually the exact whiskey bottle that I really like. And this is kind of my daily driver, if you will.
Right.
Nice.
And right then and there, he drew the gooseneck and the linarm for our wash pot and our spirit pot. And he said, if you want that type of whiskey, this is the kind of still gooseneck and linarm you're going to need.
Okay.
And, you know, we'll get working on it when I get back. And it was a month and a half of handmade fabrication to build that stills. And one of the things Richard said to us is, you know, John, you can, John and boys, you can hope and dream that your stills are going to make you this type of spirit. The stills are going to make you what they're going to make, right? And you better be happy with it. And it's funny because as people walk through our whiskeys, despite the varying different grains and the intensity of the grain and the mash bill being so different, there seems to be this constant.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to kind of put words to it yet on what that constant is, but it's definitely there.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear, you know, guys that experienced like yourselves, far more experienced than Quinn and I, to kind of go like, hey, there is something going on here. There's like a house style.
Yeah.
That kind of reinforces what
There is a bit of a house
about.
style. Yeah.
And it's like a powdered sugar, like really nice powdered sugar note that like that carries through. Is this 100% rye grain?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because it doesn't drink like any other rye I've ever had.
That's what I'm saying. There's like this, like the spice note is different than I've ever had before.
It's got to be because of the Canadian oak, which I think is a great choice on your part because, again, like when you think 100% rye, you get this like minty dill kind of like, not at all. I don't get that at all.
I don't
I
get
think
the dill in there.
what is also slightly different about that in comparison to a lot of 100% rye is it's the first use on the barrel.
Yeah.
So it is technically a virgin oak barrel.
Yeah.
It's not a once or a multi-use.
What's the char level on the Canadian oaks?
It's a 3. Yeah.
3? Yeah, nice.
To the best of his ability.
Yeah.
So you're trying them as well.
He shows
yeah,
up
I
at
do
the
everything.
distillery after charring days. He's missing half his mustache and his eyebrows.
That's why I keep my hair
They're
short.
burnt right off. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, do you know like how to toast versus like char?
Yeah,
Apparently not.
I mean, I don't really have a choice because when I bend the barrels, I don't have a steam supply, so I usually just let it toast at the same time as let the wood warm up, so it's more pliable to be able to bend.
And how many of these are crafted with your?
My barrels,
Yeah.
really just the 100%. Well, so the ones that actually have some part of my barrel.
Yeah.
This has got a
Is-
5% in yours, right?
Yes,
That's
yeah,
right.
5% on the rye,
Yeah,
our staple rye, and then 100% of the Cooper's rye.
And this guy, and this guy as
and
well.
that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that comes out of once or multi-use rye barrels that we would use.
Oh right,
Oh,
right,
right,
right. Yeah.
But
and
it
then
is
it's-
100% rye grain. Although I do repairs on any barrels at the distillery for any sort of issue.
And the toasting and charring, are you doing that with any of the barrels that come in?
There's been a few where our distilling team needs or is curious about, say, a wine barrel that we got, and they want it because wine barrels are toasted. So there's been a few wine barrels that I would have charred or recharred for them to make sure that we could kind of have a special profile.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that like whenever you toast a barrel, I find, especially on a rye, you get this like cool marshmallow kind of note, and I get that on.
It's a pretty heavy toast because it's sitting like I said. There's no steam supply, so it doesn't calm it down while I'm preparing it to bend, and you have to heat it up to get to a point where you can actually bend it.
Right.
So while it's sitting over there, it's toasting, and then when I put it back on the fire, it's continuing to toast after it's been bent, just before it actually heats up to char.
So it toasts and chars.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool.
And it's a pretty heavy toast. Yeah.
yeah. Nice.
And the Quinn was talking about like maintaining and fixing barrels too. The work related to fixing barrels goes beyond actually just Quinn. So my parents bought a very small, little humble cottage before they got married over 30 years ago, and we've grown up there, and it's been great. It's like an hour and change north of Guelph. It's not in the Muskokas or anything, but it's been a fun place to kind of spend your weekends in the summer.
Nice.
And it's on a swamp. Like, it's not a lake, it's a swamp. Just by chance, Quinn found out.
Oh yeah.
What are they called?
Bulrushes, cattails.
You know those hot dogs that grow on the end of the swamp? Bulrushes. We've got lots of those at the cottage.
Nice.
Turns out those things are like gold when it comes to fixing leaky barrels.
No way.
Yeah.
They're tried and true.
What do you do? Like muddle it up and make it into a paste?
No, you dry it out and then you peel it back just like an onion. You kind of peel each layer back, and then it's kind of like a natural gasket. It's,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Universally used. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
so now we get up to the cottage and
just harvesting.
my dad's out there. Like in hip waders, walking around in the swamp, like cutting down these things because he knows that Quinn's gonna need them.
That's so cool.
Like it's kind of like a family affair.
Quinn.
And seriously, honestly,
Oh, for sure.
Falling over in the swamp.
yeah,
Good soaker.
yeah, like he always falls in first. And foremost. He has yet to go out and come back dry. And completely unrelated, but crazy story. My mom lost her phone off the end of the dock, which is again a swamp.
Oh yeah.
Like a couple years ago, and the dock, it just like fell under the dock, and my dad fell in. Like, so now he's like walking in his like jeans or whatever, with all these bulrushes for Quinn, and he's like, you know what? I'm already soaked. I'm just gonna reach under the dock and see if I can find his phone. Grabs the phone and finds it, grabs it, pulls it out, throw that thing on rice.
Yeah.
Turned on.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
A couple years, frozen lake, like couple years, turned on.
No, sorry.
Couple
It was in there for
years.
years?
Yes.
Oh, I
That's
thought it was like
insane.
she dropped it in the same day.
No.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
she can
I
find
bet-
it.
that's
Like,
like-
it goes in the
She
water
had bought
and
a
it's
new
mud.
phone and
Like it's
everything,
gone.
yeah.
Like
Wow.
you can't find
How
it.
many missed
That's-
calls did she have?
Yeah.
For sure, there
Yeah,
was
sorry,
ulterior motives to find that phone. He was like, let's see what she's been up to.
Getting onto this last whiskey, because this is my third pour of it, I think, tonight.
So you like it?
Hey, we gotta use that for the blind taste.
I do like it a lot. This one is a single cask.
Correct.
And it's one of only a few that you've done so far.
Yeah, we've done.
Number 4.
Technically 4. We did one as a kind of a re-release. What we were talking about earlier with the cherry.
Yeah, so like talk about this one, because I don't think you can get any more Canadian than this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is really interesting because we've taken our 100% rye that was aged in multi-use barrels.
Once used.
Once used, thank you. And we were able to actually get our hands on a couple barrels from Montreal. There's a cooperage there that buys and sells a lot of barrels. And they do some unique stuff too. Like they purchased once used bourbon barrels, and then they filled it with maple syrup for a brief period.
And after about 2 months, they drain that and they char the barrel over again. So it's like a creme brulee. That's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
And then so we finished only for about 6 months our 100% rye in there. And you get to, I mean, it's not listed on the tasting notes, but one thing that really stands out for me on the flavor profile is the maraschino cherries.
Oh yeah, it's huge maraschino cherry. It's like a Di Serono kind of style liqueur. Amazing stuff. Really, really
Super
good.
viscous, I find.
Oh
Yeah. What's great is that it doesn't like overwhelm you with sweetness and maple. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
you
I
still
think
got the rye whiskey still speaks for itself.
Yeah,
on this one,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and 52.8% ABV on this one.
Yeah, and that's the benefit to it too, is having the 100% rye, so it's easy to distinguish the actual rye flavor as opposed to having corn in the blend or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like a 6 months finish, right? Like obviously you don't need too much when you've got that heavy of a cask, right? Like having a maple syrup plus the toasting.
Well, yeah. And so we actually got 2 of those barrels, and the other one we are slowly tasting along the way, but it's filled with new make single malt. So
Nice.
Yeah.
that's kind of going back to the experimentation side of things. It's just one of those small things. It's an expensive experiment, but it's one of those things to see what we can actually do in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just for the listeners and or viewers, our single casks are always exclusively launched at our distillery, and they're the only other way to get it is through our e-commerce website. And I'll let the group in on a little bit of a secret. There's something that flashes up at you when you first go to johnsleemanandsons.com or springmilldistillery.com, and it says like, let's be drinking buddies, or sign up for something. There's something that prompts you to put your email in there. I don't know what it says.
Yeah, you should know this.
I know, I really should. But it prompts you like, hey, put your email address in there. And I want to preface this by saying like, I'm not the guy that's going to put my email address anywhere. Like I don't want to I don't just like throw my email address in for like subscriptions of things. But this one's kind of cool because we don't spam you. All we actually do is email you 4 days before we launch anything.
Okay.
To the public, and we go like, hey, just so you know, we just put this on our e-commerce site. Thank you for being a loyal follower. You get a chance now to buy it before it's gone, because we launched this 15 days ago now, something like that.
Yeah.
Give or take 2 weeks.
10 days.
Somewhere in there. And it's a single cask, and it's a higher ABV, so we were under 300 bottles for when we launched, and we've got 70. Between 60 and 70 bottles,
like
depending
60,
on
61 or something like that.
Yeah, depending on how many bottles we sold today out of the store.
295 to start. Yeah.
But you can get your hands on them. We ship Canada across country.
Well, as of
when
today,
this goes up and you just said that, they will be gone.
So as of
They
today,
will be gone.
Ontario.
Link in the description down below.
Yeah.
Did you know that? I don't know if you guys know this yet, but as of today, Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick have opened the borders to all sales.
Oh,
Both coming in and out.
makes sense.
And PEI.
Yeah.
And PEI. Okay, I didn't know PEI.
Yeah, I
but
love that.
That's awesome. And so that means that that's great news for people in Alberta or BC that want to try your stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
We're in BC, Alberta,
Manitoba.
Manitoba, Ontario, and New Brunswick.
And there's still some vodka. We make a vodka and a gin as well in Quebec.
So I have some friends out in Alberta. BSW is a store that we frequently shop at, and they're buddies of mine. And if you guys were ever willing to do an exclusive cask, they've been asking me to pick out something, send it their way.
Well, we have 28, I think is the number. No, it's probably more now. 31. There's been a couple in the last couple of days. Private casks actually at our distillery.
I think you said 28 before, yeah.
Yeah, 28. Anyways, I'm in the ballpark. Private casks that have been purchased at our distillery, which are on display. So we have a whole program. I do vet it personally.
Nice.
And the reason for that is I don't need, we don't need or want people coming in and being brand ambassadors that we don't necessarily align with.
Of course.
From a brand kind of perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're getting inquiries about private casks all the time. It's a fun program. You get to come down every year in and around your barreling date and taste it at year 1, year 2, year 3.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's on display with your name on it and everything. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool idea for a whiskey club or whatever, get involved with that. Yeah. Or Whiskey and Six.
Yeah.
You should buy a cask.
Why doesn't the Whiskey Rant buy a cask? I was thinking.
You and Silent Bob can buy one together.
Jeremy always weasels his way out of this kind of stuff and then ends up drinking a ton of it. I actually recently purchased a cask with Spirit for Us, which is an independent bottler. We purchased it together from Last Straw Distillery. So it's the cool. I mean, not to really quickly. It's very similar to one of these, the wheated. It's the bourbon. The bourbon, yeah, because it's
Bourbon-style Canadian whiskey.
So it's 70% corn, 20% wheat, 10% barley. So, and that was a mash bill that I chose when it was first made, and then we recently purchased it, which is going to be 3 years old in July. So
buying private casks is cool, and you should do it.
Yeah, we're gonna come by the
someone else is paying.
That's right.
Yeah, we're gonna come by the distillery and we'll work.
Please do.
We'll
We'd
talk
be happy
it
to
out.
host you.
But
this lineup is so cool because I think you have a whiskey for every type of whiskey drinker.
for everyone,
right?
Yeah,
We're missing the Irish. We're working on that.
I would say that your single
The
malt.
single malt isn't too far off.
It's
right?
not that far off.
Yeah.
It's not that far off. It could easily be mistaken for Scottish whiskey.
I mean, your stills are a replica of an Irish distillery, are they not?
Well, they were I've never had it thrown back at me like that. They are not a replica of an Irish distillery. They are inspired by.
Okay.
Let's put it that
very
way.
Good. Yes, very good. But yeah, I think if you are you're someone who typically drinks bourbon and you're looking for a Canadian style bourbon, you have it right there. It's bang on profile wise.
I need to say something before. This one we didn't talk a lot about.
Yeah.
And it's the one that you actually didn't try.
No.
So my father-in-law drinks a lot of like CC12. He buys a lot of like the ones that you can buy in the 1.75 liter, and he goes through it in, probably too fast.
the Texas Mickey. Yeah.
Right. So this blows the CC12 out of the water, in my opinion.
Nice.
And it's probably very similar in like creation.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the CC12 is married casks, so it's like, you have all your whiskeys are aging separate and then blended at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not 12 years old.
No, but it is all different whiskeys blended together at the end.
So it's married. Yeah. So it's the traditional style of a Canadian whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
That's the perfect way to describe that. And it, like I said, it does a great job of like.
It warms our heart to hear you say that. I'm sorry, Quinn. I know you probably have something to say, but like it means the world for Quinn and I to hear that. I know my dad will listen to this and he'll get giddy as well, because that's exactly what we wanted to do. It was not steal the CC12 or the Crown Royal guy, but the intention was, let's put something that those guys would like to drink that kind of tastes similar to what they have, and they would feel comfortable with purchasing up a little bit because they see it as quality.
Yeah.
And kind of then take that and they would speak to it, brand ambassadors to their friends, like, hey, you know what? I tried, these Sleeman guys. Yeah, they might be idiots, but they make a pretty good rye whiskey. You should try it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we were hoping to do with that one.
Yeah. I think you guys did a great job. It speaks to the Canadiana of what everybody wants to protect. You guys are aware that I tried to like launch that whole like Canadian True. There's a very hardcore classic Canadian category that people don't want to let go of. More for I don't know if you guys are using the what is it, 9.09% rule in any of them.
We're well above that.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of distilleries want to keep that, and a lot of fans of the Canadian brand want to keep that, and I think this is a great like classic Canadian whiskey. So
thank you.
So there you go.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think for our viewers, if you're watching this and like, okay, I'm gonna buy one of these, like, which one should I get? I mean, I think that for the true like whiskey connoisseur, like this single cask is phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
The Canadian White Oak Barrel, the 100% rye, that's like your like hardcore Canadian drinker, your rye drinker.
Yeah,
you're gonna want that one.
And the ABV will attract the
right.
geeks as
48%
well.
ABV. This one 52.8, almost 53, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of our viewers, like, we love the high ABV stuff.
Yeah.
That sherry finish, or like the sherry blend with your single malt is phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
Almost 46% ABV on that one. And then the other two, like, honestly, like, so good as well. So like, if you're making your way
Bourbon
through
guy.
the line, right? Like, if you're a bourbon guy, you go for the traditional style.
And honestly, this is really good too.
So good. Yeah.
So I mean, you guys did a great job. I'm thoroughly impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Unfortunately, it's taken me. I mean, I've tried Sleeman's in like whiskey shows and stuff like that, but nothing beats. I say it to everybody: you can try a sample of something, and you're gonna get a little bit of an idea of what they're about. But nothing beats working down a bottle and getting to know that whiskey from start to finish, because it changes. It always changes from the first pour to the last pour. It's gonna go through a journey. You know what I mean? And by halfway, maybe it's gonna be a completely different whiskey. maybe
It's funny you say that because at the Whiskey Wonderland, you had Davin de Gergamo on recently, and he tried the cherry. We had some left, the cherry bourbon or cherry
traditional straight whiskey,
TSW.
single cask. Don't sue us.
And he didn't like it on the first taste, and then he had a second taste, and he started to grow on it. So, like you said, it's the journey through the whole process, right?
Yeah, and I've said this so many times, and I'm stealing the quote because it was said to me, and I can't remember who said it, but I was taking a gentleman through, who's Scottish, through our distillery, call it a couple months ago, and he goes, the world doesn't need another good whiskey. Right, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's see where this goes. And he goes, the world needs another good story.
Interesting.
And what he was kind of saying is, and what I took from that is, I feel very lucky, feel very blessed, and I feel like we have a wealth of stories that can be shared over the whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys giving us the opportunity to tell our story about each one of the whiskeys is a real privilege for us. Now, somebody may buy one of these whiskeys and go, hey, I heard him say this, and these are the tasting notes with that. And can you believe that the distillery that they're in now is connected to their great-grandfather and El Camon smuggling? They found the old illicit stills and holding tanks in the basement of their bar.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Like all these sorts of things go on forever.
Yeah, for sure.
We feel very lucky to be able to have that behind us. It helps, right?
And honestly, like, you guys have a huge advantage versus a lot of distilleries, and it's not going to be for why you think. It's going to be your age. Like, you guys are starting this at a nice age where you're going to get to see the fruits of your labor for a while. A lot of guys lay down a great whiskey at 60 years old, and then they might not ever get to see that whiskey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just saying that kind of chokes me up a little bit, because I remember a time when my dad looked me dead in my eyes and he says, I just hope to be able to try my 15-year-old single malt.
Yeah.
And I'm going, geez, man. But that means something. And, the way I think about this is, I don't live an extravagant life. I'm really proud of the work. I find fun and passion in the work that we get a chance to do. Sometimes I want to kill him. Sometimes he wants to kill me. But that's what it's like working in a family business.
For sure.
But it's a real privilege to be able to do that. But I've always thought about this business as something that, I hope my grandkids don't screw up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I'm going to work my ass off to get this to where it can be in the best position, but really, truly, the fruits of the labor, as you were saying, is not probably in my generation.
Yeah, you got to give them that Sleeman's cream ale in the hospital.
So
day zero.
Day
zero.
So, do we do whiskey now?
And then you're in.
Yeah, you might kill too many people.
Just a couple of drops.
Yeah.
I mean, the tradition will live on, and that's something that is really cool that you guys have this for generation and generation and generation.
Well, as long as we don't screw it up, right? Like, this isn't just like, there's an endless money bank behind it. It's no, we need to, every decision still, we're watching pennies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
well, it can get very expensive very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's where, a lot of distilleries can fall off, because they're forced into a position where they have to bottle things immediately, right? Whereas I feel like you guys have taken more time than the average.
I mean, we had a lengthy conversation today about, should we be considering, dropping down our age in some of our whiskeys, because, there's a real excitement behind our brand right now. And ultimately the discussion was had, and we left saying, you know what, we would rather stock out of whiskey and maintain that quality. And our finance department is like, what? Like, no, like, what do you mean you're cutting us off at the knees? But that goes back to the conversation we had about expectations around approaching a whiskey that you've had before, with our branding on it and quality, right?
Yeah. And they always you can't get it, so you want it is always a good marketing strategy.
It's huge.
As well.
And I mean, look at Sons of Vancouver.
Right. You can't get it.
You can't get it, and everybody they sell it immediately of every release. I will say, I mean, it's not my advice, but it's advice given to distilleries on our podcast from, in my opinion, the godfather of master distilling, and it was Billy Walker. So he's been on our channel recently. He's currently the master distiller / owner of Glenallachie and Mikultur. Previously Ben Riach and Glendronach and Glenglassaugh. He said a distillery will be, I don't want to butcher this, but basically they will be defined by their patience to bottle.
Right.
Essentially is what he said. And I think you guys are demonstrating that, and that's a huge thing, because for a guy like him to say that, he's seen it all. Like, I mean, I think Billy's turning 80 soon. So
yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's just another Canadian whiskey distillery that's putting out great stuff, and it's so refreshing to see.
Yeah,
and it's exciting for us. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, where can these guys find you?
Yeah, links in the description down below. If you want to purchase some of this whiskey, links are there. Check it out.
And if you want to share anything that's coming that's exciting, you're more than welcome. This is
if I had 30 seconds, the important thing for me is I would encourage anyone to come visit us. We do a lot of tours. And a little insider kind of note is, if you call to book a tour at our distillery, a veteran move is to actually book and reserve a table for after the tour, because people will show up, go for a tour, then come down, and our bar area is like completely rammed and you can't get a seat. We do tastings in there. We've got light fare in terms of food and handmade cocktails. So please come and visit us. We'd be honored to host you. Call in advance. Take a look. If you can't find, wherever you are in the world, and if you're in Canada, if you can't find any of our whiskeys, take a look at our website. You'll be able to shop anything that we have available and have it delivered to your door, which is kind of a treat. And we also have a variety of ready to drink cocktails. They all have to be our mom approved, which is kind of cool. So we've got a Moscow Mule, which we just call it a mule. And a Transfusion, which is a golf-inspired RTD, as well as a low-carb, low-cal watermelon mint vodka soda, which are doing really great for us, and they help pay the bills so that we can continue to lay down whiskey.
Nice.
And a gin and vodka, and we've got liqueurs, and we've got a whole variety of stuff, but our passion is definitely whiskey.
Yeah.
But I can assure you that everything we put out, we really truly want to make sure it's the best that we can possibly make, and we feel confidently in that. As a quick thank you to you guys for having us, and thank you, Quinn, for being a good bro. And thanks.
No,
thank you guys.
Pleasure was ours. Thanks for coming, and thanks for sharing.
And I mean, all the best. Good luck in the Canadian Whiskey Tournament. I don't know, how much.
Thank you.
It seems like it's caught a lot of steam, more so than I think we bit off a little bit more than we could chew. But it's gonna be a lot of fun to sort through all these. Our boy P-Boss, Silent Bob in the background doesn't get enough credit, but he's putting in the work throughout this whole interview to get everything bottled. So we'll be sure to, give him a little bit of what I call whiskey bombonietti, which is, a couple of whiskeys on the way out when it's all said and done. So,
Quinn, Cooper, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks very much for bringing these bottles. Really much appreciated. And like, comment, subscribe, and check out these whiskeys, because they're phenomenal things.
Yes.
Cheers.
Thanks so much, guys.
Cheers.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.